Shit happens, and it might not be what you prefer. But I remember telling you, like, I had a moment with a breakup to be like, okay, you didn't want this, but it is. Can we learn the lessons quickly so that we could just move onward? Yeah. And I think that's what you're okay, this sucks.
Or even like learning the lessons quickly sometimes means that like the answers aren't there.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Or like you don't need closure on this, or it's okay if you did nothing wrong and something bad happened to you, because something good will come out of it. And this is what we're going back to: belief, self-trust, energy. It's just like you really have to be accepting, and a lot more powerful than anything that can come your way. Like if there's a recipe for living a happy life and a stress-free, depressed-free, anxiety-free life, it's just being with the flow. Accept what's coming, know you're going to get over it, and know that it's always going to serve you for your better good.
Yeah. This too shall pass. Whatever it is. What's up, everyone? You are listening to Wake Up Naked. I am your host, Esmey Leon. We're going in deep into ourselves. We're going to be talking about ideas and concepts and things that have the potential to actually change our lives. So get excited, get ready, and what are you waiting for? Come over here and get naked with me. What's up, team? Welcome to the Wake Up Naked podcast. We're here with the one and only, my dear friend and soul sister, Heba Ali.
Thank you for having me, Esmey, my soul sister. I'm excited for the juicy topics.
Me too. Now, Heba is a total badass. We met at a fitness expo, and her and this like fitness dude came to the booth. And everybody was freaking out about the dude, about you too. But I remember like people like, this guy's here. And I was like, I don't give a F about this guy. I was like, who's the chick? Now, you and I have been having so many conversations that are like so deep, so soulful. But most importantly, in my opinion, I think they're conversations that matter. They're conversations that can make a difference if they're shared. So I'm super pumped that you're here and willing to talk about it. And one of the many, many things that I admire about you and that I love about you is that there's just so many things. No, but seriously, you are really good at setting boundaries. And what I have noticed, in particular women, have a hard time setting boundaries, whether it be in business, with family, with friends, in romance especially. I see that a lot. And it's not just women, but I think for sure women have a harder time setting boundaries. So why do you think women have such a hard time setting boundaries?
I think if I'm going to target women specifically, maybe the emotions that aren't regulated. And so if you don't regulate your emotions and you don't feel like you have a strong sense of value or worth, you might think that a lot of the things you're saying you're not worthy of saying. Like, for example, I'm on point with my time management, with things I have to do. And sometimes when I say I don't have time for that on social media, some people will take it like very offensively. Like, how do you just tell someone you don't have time for that? And for me, it's just like, would you allow someone to waste your money? Probably not. So would you allow them to waste your time? And it's usually when you give this analogy, they start to understand how valuable time is. And it doesn't hit certain women. And I think that is one of the internal resources. But it's just the awareness and acknowledgement of what you hold inside. So I think women need to focus more inward on their values. That way it's not so hard to set boundaries because they know they're worthy of them.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a huge part of it. Knowing that who you are and what you prefer matters. And I think, and I don't know why I go back to romance, and I don't know if you have found this in your personal romantic without going into too much detail, but like you're almost afraid to say what you want because you're afraid if the person will go away. And I think that from the conversations we've had, it's almost like if they go away, fucking perfect. Because if you set a boundary and said something that was important to you and this person doesn't respect it, then
that's a piece of you that they dislike or can't tolerate with. So if what you're saying is really true to you and that bothers your significant other, then that's a piece of you that they are disapproving of. So it wouldn't be a match. And besides that, I think that it has to do a lot with accepting a situation. Like you said, people are afraid of losing someone. And I think they hold attachments and they don't have that independence of, I love me and I'm complete no matter what. So that also is another factor.
Yeah. Now, when we were talking throughout the week, you mentioned, let's talk about business, that when you were in Egypt, people found it surprising that there was a woman that kind of knew what she wanted and set boundaries. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what you learned and how you navigated that?
Yeah. So at the beginning, I just went to like scope out the country, see what they were lacking, what I could help with. And then like there was all these companies and brands that were reaching out to me, of which are like all male dominant CEOs. And they would sit down and I would give them like very, very modest proposals, keeping into account the differences of the US currency and Egyptian currency. And they felt like my approach was aggressive, was pretentious, was not humbling. And at first I was offended and I started to like look inward and reflect on myself. And I'm like, did I say anything wrong? Like I almost thought I was wrong for a second. And then I realized the cultural differences and what they're accustomed to. And I wasn't the problem. And I just I held my ground. I didn't really lower myself to someone else's standard. But I think surely like they will come around with it because I did communicate it and they saw that. But I think that if someone didn't notice the cultural differences, they would have reacted very defensively and then just burned a bridge, which I don't recommend you ever do. You just communicate, listen, you misunderstood me. I come from a different culture. I'm not cocky. I'm just self-assured of my vision. I'm not pretentious. I'm educated. You know, it's another thing. I don't think they have that many women leaders who are educated. So they think that you're talking yourself up. When no, genuinely, I am educated. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to rant too much about that, but that was pretty much the scope of it, which isn't like shocking in the Middle East. But because Egypt is so modern now, I didn't expect it. And when I was faced with it directly and someone said it to my face directly, I got so offended because I know I'm not that.
Yeah. And I can vouch for that as well. But, you know, I know that you said it's the Middle East, but I think that happens here in America. Like if you see a woman that knows what she wants and that is more alpha, you know, it could be perceived a certain way. So how have you dealt with, because I know you have a large online following, how do you deal personally with people misunderstanding you? Like, are you at a point where you're just like really not taking anything personal, or has something struck you and you're just have a process of navigating that?
I have a lot of answers to this. Okay, so how I react to it in the beginning, I think like I would say 6 years ago, because you know we spoke about this, but certain people are born a certain way, and we have like this leadership thing where we're looking out for the best interest of everyone. If we have information, we share it, and that can come off to other people as like the know-it-all or just controlling. But I've learned to tone it down. I've learned phrasing is really important, body language, micro expression. I've learned that even though there's certain things that I do that come off as like harmless, I can still fix them to make the people around me more comfortable, meaning my facial expressions. Because when I work out, when I'm in my mind wandering phase, I have this straight face that people read completely off. And I'm just like, I swear, it's not that I think I'm better than anyone. It just, my mind is occupied or I'm in the zone. But I've learned to be more conscious of that. Besides that, you said, how do I react online? I think people online react really well to it. I think it's very inspiring for women because for them, they're like, I love how like headstrong you are and resilient, and makes me want to just like pursue my goals and go back to being this like really tough athlete that I used to be. So I haven't gotten heat on it online. Yeah.
Well, okay, here's another thing that I love about you. I think that there is a sense of like, okay, yeah, this is the way that I do things. But what you just said right now, I think is really important. And I want to explore that more. It's this idea of self-reflection too. Because you said that before with the story about Egypt. Like, wait, did I do something that could have been off-putting? And then right now you're saying, you know, yeah, I have a certain way, but I've also learned that there are little things that I could do. And I think that's huge. And it I think people, when you speak, you want people to listen and to hear, right? You want to be able to have a communication. And I've been growing through that too, because I can be very alpha as well. And if I'm training and just like in total beast mode, I've had people say, "Oh, this is the first time I've seen you smile." And you've been around me, like, I smile all the time. But maybe those people have this idea. Anyway, how important do you think it is to self-reflect? And have you always been this way since you were a little kid?
I think self-reflection is the most important. One, primarily for yourself. Like self-development, like if you're not self-reflecting, there's nothing to work on. Like you're going back on your previous behavior. If you can't reflect on your behavior, how are you going to change it? That's one. And two, I wasn't always this conscious. I mean, obviously at the ages of 13, 14, 15, your teenage years, even though I was a lot more emotionally mature for my age, your prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed until at least 21. So you don't regulate emotions well. And when I got this feedback, I was just like, oh, that's just because that's how they see me. I know that I'm a good person. And I didn't pay like that much attention. I was just like, that's their view of me. I know who I am. And I don't want to change that because I loved how true I was to myself. I had like pride with it. And then as I got older and more emotionally matured, I realized it's not only about me. Like what makes me happy is making people happy, making people comfortable. So if I can change something about me to make my company more comfortable, then I will. Because there's self-growth for me as well. So it's a win-win. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's like part of like being human and floating around in outer space with a bunch of other people that have their own unique way of wanting to be spoken to, or different ways of like, you've heard of is it the 5 love languages?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like that. It's like everybody receives information differently.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, one of the things that I've learned, that if it doesn't jeopardize who I am really, like my identity, then I'm willing to be flexible and to change my word phrasing if I know that it's going to make you feel better. If you say, hey, Esmey, this made me feel this way,
Yeah, I think there is a certain boundary, no pun intended, to how much you can change to make for others. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like I changed body language, micro expressions, things of that nature, but I didn't change my value system.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a time that you have, and what did you learn from it?
I mean, I definitely have, like, I can't tell you there was a moment in my life where I valued this more than that. And it was because but I know that earlier this year, even let's go back to 2 years ago, as an entrepreneur, I put business first, even though I really valued family. And it's something I really learned from, because once you hit those numbers, once you see everything skyrocketing, even though it's your passion, and you're not happy, you realize that you traded off the wrong thing. So that's something that I can say that in my value system got shifted, and it happened subconsciously. And I think it was the exposure to all this like entrepreneur motivational speeches online that were like, no sleep, grind, 6 a.m., don't go to sleep, work, work, work. And so like 3 years ago, like mentally, I was like, okay, this is the sacrifice I have to make. And again, going back to my value system, I don't think it really was, because I got to the end goal and I wasn't happy. So that told me that I put something first that didn't need to be there.
Yeah, I love that you say that. And I love that you have that comprehension, because I think that we are sold this idea that you have to, and actually, here's the one thing that I think is the biggest lie, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is what I thought of, right? Okay, the more you do, the more you're worth.
Yeah,
I think that we are sold this idea that the more you do, the more you're worth. So now you have all these beautiful, beautiful, creative human beings who are going crazy, depressed, anxious, because they're not where they need to be, and they need to work, 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 work. And no matter how much you do, or let's say like what you just said, you fulfill the goal, but then you're like, oh, happy for a second, and then, oh shit, I'm not fulfilled.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say though that every entrepreneur feels like this at some point. And even if you have you can balance the two for sure, but they have experienced a phase in their life where they didn't. And it's because if you look at a commonality amongst all entrepreneurs, they're really highly ambitious. They're really highly competitive. And so this works as a double-edged sword, and you will lose yourself in work. And so it's really important to be like really aware of that and make sure that society isn't making you conform to things you don't believe in, because we're all victims. I'm a victim. I'm not any better. There's like all these fashion trends and what you just said, people are depressed and anxiety, not only because they have to do more, like whatever, if that's aesthetically or a place they need to be in their life, but also because, let me find the right phrasing. If you're anxious or depressed, not generalizing, you're living a life that's not true to you.
And that's where it's coming from.
That's where I feel you're conforming to a societal standard or some influence that is not true to you. And once you let go of that, I mean, I even have personal experience with that, with what success was or how I would be helping the world. I thought I needed
What
to
did you think success was before? And what do you think it is now?
I think like before I was hitting by the name Evolved Nation, like this was such a global movement. Like I'm just, from a young age, I had this passion to help as many people as I could. I don't understand why. Like I feel like I'm just responsible for it. So I didn't feel like I was good enough until I hit such a huge impact that was so global, and that's what I fixated my success on. And now I realized if I help a handful, I'm so happy because I'm accomplishing my goal. And as long as I'm taking care of my psychological needs, like my happiness, I'm spending time with my family, I'm doing things that I genuinely enjoy, including and excluding fitness. So it's just a balance of everything.
Yeah. Now, we've talked a lot about energy and just how everything can flow if you let it. And that's another thing that I really loved talking about with you and that I really feel that you embody. And we had talked about trusting in whatever you want to call it. I call it energy. I think you call it energy as well. Some people might call it God. Some people might call it nature, your higher self. Words don't matter. But what does that mean to you? And can you give us an example of like when that was put to the test? When did you know that you could trust?
Oh, I have goosebumps.
I can't wait.
There's like several cases in my life, and sorry, I like messed up my voice today when I was working out. I don't know what happened. I was pushing the sled and
she was shouting. She was like, "Ah!"
You should have seen me. I was coughing all over the floor.
I wish I could have been there.
Yeah. So let's go back to my younger years, because I think a lot of people can relate with this. And if they haven't gotten this insight, here it is. When I got into sports very late, because I was raised conservatively, I didn't have any like of these born talents that a lot of these runners had. They were running since 5, and I wasn't good at all. And I went and put myself completely vulnerable on the field, coming in last place all the time. And I just believed in myself.
How old were you? At that
16.
time? 16. Okay.
So this had nothing to do, honestly, with religion or it just all came from within. And I believed in myself so much. I don't know if this is because, like, for me, I had anxiety running. But there was also another thing of, like, I didn't want to disappoint my team. I didn't want to disappoint my coaches. Again, like, I was just very caring of others. So these two things, like, I believed so much in myself to make me proud and also prove to my teammates that I was good enough. And I turned around in 2 seasons and I was the top runner in my school. And I share this because, like, I literally had no advantages. I was working like 15-hour shifts waitressing. I was in high school. I was going to the gym 2 times. That's what got me into my NASM certification. I got that so I could train myself, not even clients. So it just shows that when you're willing, there will always be a way. And you just have to just keep riding it. Like, if you do something, like, go all in. Don't commit for 6 months and fall out, because maybe you would have been this close.
Yeah.
Maybe you would have been this close to seeing a result that would have taken you even further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely have changed the life,
Yeah.
your life, and where it could go. Yeah, that reminds me. Oh, go ahead.
No, you tell me and then I'll tell you.
Okay, and then we'll tell you.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, it reminds me of momentum, because I think with so much in life, you just have to go. And the more you go, it's an energy field. And the more you keep showing up, the energy field keeps getting bigger. So eventually there comes a place where it pops and the momentum will carry you even on the days when you don't feel like it. And I can relate with that with like the gym. You know, it's so much harder to not work out.
Yeah.
We had a rest day and it was so hard to rest.
We were itching.
Yeah, we were like, just a small run.
Or like, let's cycle and get blood flow.
And we were like, wait, bitch, we need to calm
down. Like we glued ourselves to the chairs. Like, don't move.
We really did. We're like, we're not moving. So that's the momentum. And I think that goes not just with fitness, but with everything.
Yeah. I think David Goggins says this really well as well, which relates to momentum, but all of the experiences you go through, that like the hardships, the self-doubts that you overcome, it becomes like a log. Well, he calls it a cookie jar. Like you put a cookie in, and it's like you go back and you look at all this stuff and you realize how much you've overcome. So whatever it is you're presently dealing with, you have the self-belief right then and there. Like you re-spark it. People are like, well, how do you spark up belief? Like, where do I start? Well, look at everything you went through and accomplished that you doubted you can get through. And that's what it is for me, at least. It's become so subconscious that one of my like most proud attributes or areas of growth is the fact that I love ambiguous challenges. Like when I left California and went on this like 6-month.
You have to excuse our. It was a call from heaven.
So one of my biggest like areas of growth that I'm proud of is you're distracting me.
Our camera guys are so unprofessional right now.
I was gonna say that the camera stopped every 30 minutes, so you got 9 more minutes, okay? And everyone roll again.
Okay. So one of my most areas of growth that I'm proud of is the ability to just enter and accept any ambiguous challenge. And it wasn't easy in the beginning. I decided to leave California. Like I was on this like huge hunt to discover something.
And I wanna dig into that because I feel like you're saying it and it sounds very like graceful and flowy. But can we go to that moment when you said you decided to leave, right? Like it's not a moment where you're just like, okay, I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah.
Like there had to have been some like maybe a little bit of fear or like what was that like to actually, or was it super easy? Because I think a lot of people think like it's, oh, she's outgoing, so everything's easy for her.
Yeah, no, you know? I don't think that's the case whatsoever. For me, it was a lot of building up thoughts and unsettledities that I was feeling and I was aware of. So going back to what I said to you, 2 things that I said to you. One being that when you start to realize you're not happy and you do an introspection of why I'm chasing a goal that I thought was so important. So one, realizing that the business aspect was prioritized and I needed to focus inward, and that I couldn't do that if I kept focusing on scaling and scaling and scaling. So I knew that I had to put business like second, third, fourth, wherever, but it couldn't be first. And then I knew that the environment I was in was causing that. Do you understand what I mean? Like everyone is so ambitious. Like in LA, they're all about filming, content, collaborating, and you kind of like get lost in that. You know what I mean? Because you have to keep the steady pace of doing that. And I wanted something that was a lot more like, I needed more growth. I was outgrowing fitness. Really, I was. I love fitness. I love to teach it, but I knew there was lessons for me to learn. So I needed to let go of that. And then something I brought up to you, what is it that I said to you?
We were talking about momentum and energy and flowing and trusting.
No. Hold on. It's on the tip of my tongue. Please come back. It's gonna come to me. Wait, well, if you asked the question, like, oh, you said, why did you just pick up and leave?
Yeah, like how it couldn't. Sometimes it feels, and when I was hearing you speak, I was like, oh yeah, it's almost like sometimes people think that people that are super outgoing and super ambitious, like everything comes so easy. So you make a decision and you just go. But there's still fear and there's still other emotions that happen. There's still even doubt.
Yeah.
But almost like your essence and your willingness overpowers. And that's one of the things, and I don't know if it came back to you, but if it doesn't come back to you, I actually want to, you said something interesting earlier about David Goggins and the cookies, right? Everything. So I wanted to know, what's your biggest cookie? Like, what is something that had just like knocked you down and maybe you didn't even think you could come out of it, but you did? Is there anything in your life where you were just like knocked down?
There definitely was. I mean, to briefly put it, otherwise we'd be here for like an hour. When I lost my Instagram account for like 7 months, I think the initial moment of when I lost it and it was disabled, I felt like the world was taken from me. As like crazy as it sounds, people are like, I don't know how viewers will take this, because if you don't have a role online where you pour passion into it and this is your fulfillment of helping the world and it's your little baby, that's what my social media was about, my movement.
It's your business too.
Yeah.
It was your business.
Yeah. So when I lost it, I felt like, wow, everything I've worked up for, I even felt like a bit of my identity was like gone. And I think that the biggest lesson learned from that was to have no attachments, was to love what you do, and not hold your happiness in one thing. So that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. And I went through months and I even accepted that like it was never going to come back. And I found so much peace. Like when I came back on social media, people were telling me like, you look so peaceful. And I wasn't even trying to be anything else than what I was.
Yeah.
So it really proved how much of emotional maturity I went through and grace. Like that was one of the biggest things. I mean, I can go into like detail, but it was very like hard to regulate my emotions, because I knew there was a moment where I was like, you can be depressed for the next couple of months, or you could put your foot down right now and just say, all right, what are you feeling? Why is this happening? Look for the lesson. What can you do to continue to do what you love, fulfillment? And so there was a lot of inner work that happened during those months, and it was so worth it.
I like that. And we talked about this yesterday about like shit happens and it might not be what you prefer. But I remember telling you, like, I had a moment with a breakup to be like, okay, you didn't want this, but it is. Can we learn the lessons quickly so that we could just move onward? And I think that's what you're okay, this sucks.
Or even like learning the lessons quickly sometimes means that like the answers aren't there.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Or like you don't need closure on this, or it's okay if you did nothing wrong and something bad happened to you, because something good will come out of it. And this is what we're going back to: belief, self-trust, energy. It's just like you really have to be accepting, and a lot more powerful than anything that can come your way. Like if there's a recipe for living a happy life and a stress-free, depressed-free, anxiety-free life, it's just being with the flow. Accept what's coming, know you're going to get over it, and know that it's always going to serve you for your better good.
Yeah. This too shall pass, whatever it is. I love it. Well, Heba, it's been amazing having you here for this first part. You're, as you guys saw, super inspirational. There's more to come, guys. Stay tuned.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you got as much out of that as I did. If you have not hit the subscribe button, make sure to go back and hit subscribe and keep coming back. Team, we're going to the top, and I will see you there. I'm out.